Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you. Okay, let me introduce our group members. In our group, there are 5 people, include me, Amani, Fariha Maizura, Izara Husna, Sharifah Batrisha Auna, and lastly, Mia Maisara Yasmin. Today, we are going to learn about food chains under the topic ecosystem and habitats. So, this is our group's poster about food chains. As you can see, this poster shows the different levels in a food chains. It starts with producers at the bottom, then primary, secondary, and tertiary consumers. All the energies come from the sun. Next, I will present what are food chains. A food chain is a representation of the flow of energy and feeding relationship from one organism to another in an ecosystem. In simple words, it shows who eats who.
Now, I'm going to explain why food chains are important. First, food chains show how energy moves through an ecosystem. For example, plants like grass get energy from the sun. Then, animals like goats eat the grass. So, energy is transferred from plants to animals. Second, food chains help keep nature in balance. Every living thing has a role. Like if one animal become too many, it can affect the plants and other animals. So, food chains help control the population and keep everything stable. Lastly, food chains show how plant and animal depend on one another. Plants need animal to spread seeds. Animal need plants for food and oxygen. And human also depend on both to survive. So we all connected. On the screen, we have 5 main keywords that we need to know. First is consumer. Consumer means a living organism that is present in a food chain. For example, human, goats, and birds are all consumers. Second is habitat. Habitat means where an organism living, such as fish living in water and monkeys live in the forest. Next is trophic level. What is that? Trophic level are the stage in a food chain. It shows the order of who eat who, from procedures to the top consumers. Next, it is predator. A predator is an animal which eats another animal. As you can see here, the lion is the predator. And lastly is prey. Prey is an animal that is eaten by a predator. In this picture, the deer is the prey of the lion. So, these 5 keywords: consumer, habitat, trophic level, predator, and prey. It helps us understand how a food chain works.
I will explain about food chain. Food chain begin with a producer. Producer is usually a green plant or algae which carry out photosynthesis. That means it can make its own food using sunlight. In this food chain, grain is the producer. Grass makes its own food and it is the starting point of energy in the food chain. So everything else in this chain depends on the grass. Without the producer, there will be no food for the others anymore. Next up, we have the primary consumer. In the second trophic level, the primary consumer is the producer. So it is an animal that eats plant. In this food chain, the primary consumer is the grasshopper. Let's look at the flow. The grass is the producer, and then the grasshopper eats the grass. That's why grasshopper is called the primary consumer.
Next, let's talk about secondary consumer. In the third trophic level, the secondary consumer feeds off the primary consumer. That means it eats the animal from the level before it. In this food chain, we can see the flow of energy. The grass is the producer. The grasshopper is the primary consumer because it eats the grass. And here, the secondary consumer is the frog because the frog eats the grasshopper. So, the frog in the third level, it does not eat plants. It eats other animals that eat plants. To conclude, a secondary consumer is an animal that eats primary consumers. In this example, the frog is the secondary consumer. Next, let's move on to the next topic, tertiary consumer. In the fourth tropic level, the tertiary consumer is an animal that eats secondary consumers. In this food chain, the snake is the tertiary consumer. The snake is a predator. That means it hunts other animals for food. Let's follow the food chain. Grass is eaten by the grasshopper. The grasshopper is eaten by the frog. The frog is eaten by the snake. So here, the frog is the prey of the snake. So, to conclude, the snake is in the fourth level. It is the tertiary consumer because it eats the frog, which is the secondary consumer.
Next, I will explain about the quaternary consumer. A quaternary consumer is an animal at the top of the food chain. It is also called an apex predator because it has no natural predators. In this food chain, the sequence is grass, to grasshopper, to frog, to snake, to hog. The hog is the quaternary consumer because it eats the snake, making it the highest level consumer in this food chain. Now, let's move on to food webs. A food web is made up of many connected food chains. It shows how different plants and animals are linked together in an ecosystem. For example, the grass can be eaten by the grasshopper and the rabbit. The grasshopper can be eaten by the frog or the mouse. Then, the frog, mouse, and rabbit can all become food for larger predators, such as the hog or the fox. A food web is important because it helps us understand how living things depend on one another to survive. If one organism disappears, it can affect the entire ecosystem. Shukran jazilan.
谢谢。
Arigato gozaimashita.
Thank you.
Terima kasih.
Bye.